Good morning, Freedom Kids. I'm so excited to be with you again this morning. Say hi in the comments below to let us know who is all watching right now with us. It's been so great to be back here at the church the last couple of weeks. I've loved having a chance to see some of you in person and to catch up after being apart for months. Well, this is going to be our last week in our series about following Jesus, and I'm so glad that we were able to learn together what it means to follow Jesus and how to follow him. We've learned many important lessons, and for some of us, this was probably a good reminder of what it means to be a Christian and what we're supposed to do as Christians. The first week, our big idea was following Jesus starts with hearing the good news. We talked about the importance of actually hearing about who Jesus is because we can't know somebody without hearing about them first. Our second big idea was following Jesus means that we believe that Jesus is Lord. In this lesson, we learned that in order to be a Christian, we need to believe in Jesus and make him Lord of our lives. Last week, our big idea was baptism is how we tell everyone that we want to follow Jesus forever. And we talked about the importance of being baptized to publicly show people that we have chosen to follow Jesus for the rest of our lives. This week, we're going to be talking about commitment. That's a pretty big word, and some of you may not know what that means, but commitment means deciding to be dedicated to something or someone. There are lots of different things that we can be committed to, like dance, sports teams, either playing on one or cheering for one, playing an instrument, or doing well in school. When we're committed, we keep trying, even if it isn't easy. We always want to do our best, and we put in 100%. If you commit to being a friend, it means that you have to hang in there even when things get tough. There are people who are committed to looking after us, like our parents, our guardians, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles. No matter what, those people are always going to stick by you. So today's big idea is following Jesus is an all-day, everyday commitment. This is one of the most important commitments of all. So we're going to check out our video and see how Paul and Silas's commitment to Jesus helped them get through a tough situation.
Hi, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Dan. Jordan, could you tell us about something you could see yourself doing all day, every day?
Yeah, I could travel all day, every day. I like experiencing new cultures and especially new foods. But also seeing nature and hiking, as well as old cities and historical things, art, music. Oh, I would love to travel every day.
Along the same lines, today's big idea is that following Jesus is an all-day, everyday commitment. Let's watch today's God story and learn more about that.
How does a cucumber become a pickle? It goes through a jarring experience. Hey everyone, it's Alyssa. Welcome to today's God Story. So when I was in high school, I had this really good friend named Jill, and we were in a science class together. And we had the opportunity to work on a project together in this class. Now we were both stoked to get to work together, but what we didn't realize is sometimes being friends with someone is different than working with someone. And as we were working on this project, a whole bunch of differences and disagreements came up. And honestly, at one point, I thought that we might not be friends anymore because of this project. But at a certain point, she and I just looked at each other and thought, our friendship means too much to us and we care about each other too much to let this project ruin our friendship. So we talked through it, we set some boundaries, we made a plan to move forward, and I'm really glad we did that because to this day, we're still really good friends. I share this story because sometimes when you hear about commitments, like a commitment to a friendship, we often only hear about the good stuff. But friendships can be really hard too, and there can be some rocky moments, but we can push through and work things out, and those sometimes end up being the best friendships that we have. When it comes to following Jesus, sometimes it can feel easy, and other times it can feel really, really hard, but it is always worth sticking with it. And that's why today's big idea is following Jesus is an all-day, everyday commitment. Today, we're gonna hear about how Paul and Silas's all-day, everyday commitment to Jesus had a huge impact on one family in particular. One day, while Paul, Silas, and their friends were walking to find a place of prayer, they were met by a female slave. Now, this woman had an evil spirit inside of her that helped her tell the future, and so her owners made a lot of money off of her because of that. She followed Paul and Silas's group around shouting, "These men serve the Most High God. They're telling you how to be saved." And she did this for days. Can you imagine how annoying that would be to have someone following you around shouting all the time? Finally, Paul had had enough. So he turned around to the woman and said to the spirit inside of her, "In the name of Jesus Christ, come out." And the evil spirit left the woman right away. You can imagine her owners were not happy because without this evil spirit, this woman wouldn't be able to tell the future, and that made them their money. So they took Paul and Silas to the authorities and told them that they were making trouble in the town and things like that. And then they asked that they should be beaten and whipped. So they were, and then they were thrown into prison. Now imagine Paul and Silas were simply following Jesus. They were doing what he wanted them to do, tell others about Jesus. And because of this, Paul and Silas were thrown into prison. Now, at this point, Paul and Silas could have just given up, thought like, this Jesus thing is way too much work, forget it. But they knew that following Jesus is an all-day, everyday commitment, and so they didn't give up. And this is where things get really interesting. The jailer was told to watch Paul and Silas very carefully because they had a reputation of weird things going on around them. So he chained their feet so they couldn't escape. While they were chained in prison, Paul and Silas started to pray and sing hymns while the other prisoners listened. And something really cool happened next. Let's read what happens. Suddenly, there was a powerful earthquake. It shook the prison from top to bottom. All at once, the prison doors flew open. Everyone's chains came loose. The jailer woke up. He saw that the prison doors were open. He pulled out his sword and was going to kill himself. He thought the prisoners had escaped. "Don't harm yourself," Paul shouted. "We are all here." The jailer called out for some lights. He rushed in, shaking with fear. He fell down in front of Paul and Silas. Then he brought them out. He asked, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" How cool is that? Paul and Silas were just staying committed to following Jesus in their everyday life. And out of that, the jailer saw that the God they follow is the true God. So the jailer asks what he must do to be saved. Here's what Paul and Silas say. They replied, "Believe in the Lord Jesus. Then you and everyone living in your house will be saved." They spoke the word of the Lord to him. They also spoke to all the others in his house. At that hour of the night, the jailer took Paul and Silas and washed their wounds. Right away, he and everyone who lived with him were baptized. The jailer brought them into his house. He set a meal in front of them. He and everyone who lived with him were filled with joy. They had become believers in God. Everyone became followers of Jesus. How cool is that? In the middle of the night, they were baptized and started serving him. I think that's an amazing story. This story really does remind us that even when it's not easy or things get tough, following Jesus is an all-day, everyday commitment. And some really cool things can come out of that. Thanks for listening to today's God Story, and I will see you next time.
Turn to the person next to you and see if you can answer these questions.
Before the time runs out.
Question time. What happened to Paul and Silas in today's story? What happened to the jailer and his family in the story? Game time! Mixed up. Can you say the key verse before the words are sorted? Get ready. 3, 2, 1, go! Say it with me.
Say with your mouth, Jesus is Lord. Believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead. Then you will be saved. Romans 10, verse 9.
I don't think we'll ever really have a full picture of what happened in the prison that night. But imagine this is a movie scene. There's an earthquake, the chains break, and then the most amazing thing happens. The prisoners are still in their cells, and they didn't try to escape.
Yeah. And when we think about it that way, we can see that it's Paul's 24/7 relationship with God that helps him stay true to himself and be happy despite the circumstances.
Check out the story of Chris and how he found happiness in his relationship with God.
For a while, I separated my hobbies, which was skateboarding, and I separated it from myself and I separated it from the people I was around. And when I realized that it's all one thing, that's when I realized I was on the right path, and that's when I've been the most happy. My name is Chris. I'm 20 years old. I live in Ottawa, Ontario, but I grew up in Brockville with my family, my mom, my dad, and my brother and my sister. Skateboarding is where I feel the happiest. It's where I can connect any sort of good times in my life to. If I think back to a good day or a good time, it most definitely had something to do with skateboarding. It makes no sense that this toy that was created can bring so much joy to people's lives. Not only when I am skateboarding myself, but watching skateboard videos, reading skateboard magazines, talking with people about skateboarding. It's a passion that I have that God has given me, and it feels like nothing else. For a while, I separated my faith and my hobbies, which were skateboarding, and I separated it from myself and I separated it from the people I was around. And so when I went away to camp, I must have been about 13 years old. I met a guy who was a skateboarder, but he was also a Christian. And this man loved God and he was following Jesus, and he put that out there. He didn't hide that behind his skateboarding, he put it out there. And me and this guy got to talking, and I realized that this guy was living what I wanted to live. He was celebrating his faith, and he had his faith displayed just as much as he was a skateboarder, and that's what rooted his skateboarding and gave him reason to do it. When I realized that it's all one thing, and my relationship with God is my whole life, that my faith didn't have to be separate from my skateboarding, and that they became one, that's when I realized I was on the right path, and that's when I've been the most happy. Well, right after I went to camp and discovered this new thing about myself that I was happy about, I started right at the beginning of high school, and so I went into grade 9 with a great mindset of, this is who I am. I love skateboarding, I love this culture and this lifestyle, but I'm also a Christian, and it helped me through high school in so many ways. It helped me just maintain a reputation that I was comfortable with. I didn't go through high school scared to tell people about what I believed in. I told people I was a Christian, and I expressed my faith, and all the while doing that, I still got to skateboard with people and meet new people, and it didn't hold me back from anything I wanted to be. Everyone can struggle with the idea of hiding your faith at some times. I know for me, I'd go to youth group and I would pray with my friends and worship with my friends, and we'd talk about the Bible and about God, but then around other people, I wouldn't be like that. And I think that I was definitely hiding my faith for a number of years and thinking that not only was I not comfortable with it, but I knew they wouldn't be comfortable with me sharing. And so I didn't think it was worth putting my friendship at risk with these people or my reputation. I found out that through skateboarding, God was gonna give me the chance to minister to other people and to meet new people and to travel to new places. Most people think that being a Christian means you're stuck at a Christian, that's it. This Christian lifestyle, this faith-based life that you're living means that you're a certain way, and that's the way you always have to be. You have to be this man who just reads Bibles and prays and talks to a God, but no, you're still a human. You get to celebrate the things you love, and having God behind it gives it that much more reason and worth doing. I feel like back before I knew what a personal relationship with God was like, never would have thought that I was a mess. I never would have thought that I was out of place, but I definitely had some work to be done in my life. I was definitely confused, and I definitely felt like jagged and kind of ruined in some areas. And so I feel like once I made that choice to start following and to be smarter with what I was doing, and just to have that leading my path, to have Jesus leading the way, he just began to shape me. He took my world and he flipped it, and he just fully put my path in the right, he put me in the right direction. I always thought most people's testimonies were this magical thing that would happen overnight. But for me, it's been a journey. It really has, an adventure that's been throughout my whole life, because I've always known who God was, but it took 13 years for me to make that personal connection with him. And then a few years after that is when I finally decided I want to be baptized to display to the world that this is what I believed in. And so it's a constant journey and a push and something I look forward to every day. I wake up and just ask myself, what's God going to do in my life today? Who will I meet? Where will I go? It's all part of the journey, and I love it.
Question time! Did Chris say or do anything that stood out to you? If yes, what?
That was awesome. Did you see the precision with which Chris works when he builds a new skateboard?
Yeah, and I love his passion for skateboarding. It's clear he knows what he can do on a skateboard and how far he can push himself.
Skateboarding is a part of who Chris is, and I think it's the same when we choose to follow Jesus. As our relationship with Jesus strengthens, it can grow into a beautiful, all-day, everyday commitment.
Absolutely. Let's break into our small groups now and see what this looks like in our own lives.
Oh man, being thrown in jail was probably not what Paul and Silas were planning to have happen to them on this particular day. All they wanted to do was find a quiet place that they could go and pray. They did not know that they would get in so much trouble for healing that little girl that had that evil spirit in her. They probably thought that they were helping her and doing a good thing, but the people that owned that little girl got mad because she was a source of income, which means they were able to make money off of the fact that she could tell people's futures. So Paul and Silas, even though they thought they were doing something good, ended up being beaten and thrown in jail because the people were angry. While they were in prison, both of them could have just said, "That's it, I'm done. I'm not following Jesus. This is too crazy. I don't want to go to jail." But instead, they knew that following Jesus was an all-day, everyday commitment, and they chose to not give up. In fact, they actually started to pray and worship God right there in the prison cell that they were in. And something amazing happened. There was a huge earthquake, and the doors of the prison opened, and everybody's chains fell off. The poor guard at the time thought he was in big trouble because he thought all the prisoners had escaped. But he didn't know what was going to happen to himself, so he was going to actually kill himself because he was scared of what was going to happen. But Paul stopped him and he saved his life. He actually saved the guard's life in more ways than one. He was able to share the good news of Jesus with the guard and his entire family, and they all believed in Jesus and were baptized. So Paul also gave the guard and his family the hope of being with Jesus in heaven one day. Even though Paul and Silas faced difficulties and challenges, they knew that following God was what was best for them. It was their commitment to Jesus that helped them to stay strong. I liked hearing Chris's story, and you can tell that he's very committed to skateboarding and, more importantly, to Jesus. It took him time and commitment to be able to build skateboards like he does, and it was the same way for his relationship with Jesus. He had to work at it so it could grow into a beautiful, all-day, everyday commitment. One thing that I really like about Chris's story is that he found a way to use his passion for skateboarding and to serve Jesus every day in the best ways that he can. It can be the same for us. If we want to have a strong relationship with Jesus, we need to put in the time and the commitment. We know that following Jesus can sometimes be easy and other times it can be hard. But no matter what we're facing, it's always worth sticking with Jesus. Well, this has been a great series. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope everyone learned something new or was reminded of what it means to follow Jesus. Next Sunday, we're going to start our new series called Campfire. And in this series, we're going to look at some of the questions that we as Christians ask. Well, it's time for us to get ready for our regular service, so I hope to see some of you guys at the church this morning. If not, hopefully maybe next week. But you guys have a good week, and we'll see you later.